Hi folks, just going to do another pond update, starting the filter house this time, and also go through a bit of the plan for the back part of the pond. First of all, not a huge amount done this week. The weather in Dublin today is pretty good. It's around 20 degrees, but it is dull, very wet during the week, so not a lot done, bar my sort of bi-weekly bottom drain flush. I did that and vacked out the pond. Not much to report. The only thing was, I think I mentioned, was it last week or the week before, I did a cloverleaf blanket answer treatment, and there was a lot of white residue, so whatever white powder the treatment comes in tends to stay in the system, and when I flushed the bottom drains there was visibly a lot of white residue coming through that are obviously settled there. Also in the back part of the pond, the shallower part that tends to act as a settlement chamber, there was a lot in there. Now it was easy enough to vac out. Very little of it seemed to settle in the main pond. It probably comes out through the returns in the main pond and back in through the bottom drain, so cycles around, but it's kind of nowhere to go in the back. I'll show you that in a minute, and it settles. Not a big deal because it's easy enough to back out, but just interesting that it doesn't tend to dissolve as you might think it does. It stays in the system, whatever it is, whatever medium it is they use to get the blanket answer in. The good thing is a blanket answer, it does bloody work. I cut blanket weed fairly on. Now I only did a half treatment. I think I did about 800 or 900 grams for 22,000 litres. I think 1.7, 1.8 kilos was the recommended dosage, so I did half of that and it worked great. There was a noticeable difference within a day or so, although it did take a few days for that milkiness to clear out of the water. Couple of changes I made. I did up my trickle in. It was 0.35 litres a minute, which equates to about 3,500 litres a week. I upped that to 5,000, which I think is probably better during the summer months. It's more akin to a 20%, 25% water change on a 22,000 litre pond. And I checked the chlorine content from the big blue and it was fine. It should be well able to handle that. It's still, as you can see here, pretty much just a trickle. The hint of blue there is the UV, but we're not looking directly at it. I've also upped the pumps as well, my turnover. I'm running the one on the left, which is into the main pond. It's a 20,000 litre barrier. That's on about 70%. So that'll be what, about 16,000 litres, 14,000 litres an hour. And then on the one on the right that's in the back pond is running at 40%. So that's what, about 8,000 litres an hour. So I'm probably turning over the pond once an hour, which again, in the summer is probably what's needed. Now, this is a filter that's rated for 35,000 litres an hour. Now, even though I'm using the 3 inlets and I'm only using 2 outlets, I think it's at fair enough. It's maximum there at around the 20,000 litres. Now, I know it probably depends on the length of the run you have from the pond to the input, and I do have a few 90-degree turns on each of those inputs that's outside under the ground. It just wasn't possible to avoid it, so that slows the water down. So they say that take manufacturers' throughputs for filters with a pinch of salt, but now that's to say it's perfect for my needs, but I'm glad I got the bigger filter. There was a 22,000 litre version of it. Now I could have said that will do because of a 20,000 litre, 2,000 litre pond, but the advice I got, which was good advice, you're not going to get the manufacturer's rate of turnover. Go for a bigger filter. You're not going to over filter. So that's what I did, and I'm glad I did, but it's all working well. I do notice, since I've upped the trickle in and I've upped the turnover, the water clarity is better. But then, having said that, there hasn't been any sun really to speak about in the last week or 10 days, and I'm sure that helps as well. So it remains to be seen, but pretty happy with the way things are in there. I need to tidy up here, I know that, I've said that the last time, but I will. Now just to head outside and talk about the pond itself. All the fishies are grand, no drama, no stress. They're feeding well, feeding them twice a day, and all eating well. Had a heron, the net again, I know, unsightly, but this is the first morning in a few mornings I haven't had the camera triggered by a heron. He tends to land here, where my Dublin duster, as Steve Wainwright calls it. I just did the window, and he walks along the window and in here, and sometimes he jumps onto the net. When he jumps onto the net, it's very short-lived. He tends to either fly off or stand. So everyone's present and correct, so there's no doubt the net works. I do need something else though, I feel, to deter him from even coming near the pond. The plastic herons, very mixed views on those. They're about €30 here. Did see one in a shop last week and decided not to buy it. I'm not even sure it's the same heron, to be honest with you. It could be different herons. There's a load of them on an estuary. We're very close to an estuary here. Another thing is one of these spray things that I've seen on Amazon. People said are quite good. So you hook it up to a tap and it has a movement sensor, and when it senses movement, it sprays water. I do have a tap you can see at the back, so I could mount something on the corner there. And maybe put a timer on the tap so it only feeds water to it between, say, 7 and 9 in the morning, because this guy only turns up at sort of dawn. That's when they're most active, the herons. Dawn, the odd time you see them at dusk. But usually there's a fair bit of life with the dogs and ourselves around the garden, so we're less likely to see them. But I might order one of those. They're only about €35, and with Prime it's free shipping. Just give that a try and report back on it. It's kind of the only thing. I've tried one of those what are these high-pitched sound things. I had one before on an old pond, and I've video of the heron just walking around it, and it's flashing lights and doing its bleeping or high-pitched noise. It's not really audible to human ears. It's supposed to be audible to animal ears, but it was useless, to be honest. So I think the water thing that, or else maybe hanging something like, chimes or something that reflects or makes noise in the wind might deter them. But, I'm just, although the net is doing its job, just nervous that the fecker is still around and that hopefully he doesn't get something, because I see him up, he jumps down, and then a minute later he comes back up, and I think what he's doing is he gets bait, whether it's a worm or something, or a bit of bread or whatever's around, and drops it into the pond, or tries to drop it into the pond. I've seen bits of worms and larvae and bits of bread on the net, and I reckon it's him, because herons they're the only bird I believe use bait to lure fish. So I believe he's trying to do that, and if one of the fish went too close to him, it could be fairly disastrous. So I will do something else. You'll notice in the garden we have got somebody, thankfully, to start doing the garden for us. They only started on Friday afternoon, so the first thing they did was rotivate. I think I mentioned in the last video, we had a gardener look at it, and he looked at the grass and the state of it and said, listen, short of rotivating it and reseeding it or putting down sod, it's not going to look anything. So we decided, he was here, he rotivated, which is a good job. Now it looks fairly messy. How that gets flattened down to a nice even lawn. We're going to just seed it. We have a couple of months of growing, so I think laying down rolled sod was another €700, so we decided we could use that elsewhere. So he's back tomorrow to finish that. One thing he did scare me with was he rotavated right up to the back of the shed, and there's a lot of pipes here. There's the tree, the skimmer and the two bottom drains are kind of visible there, but there are a couple of the returns are further down now. He said, oh, I know, I wasn't that close, but Jesus, that should be fairly disastrous. But anyway, everything's fine. So what we're going to do is just bring the grass along here and then just stone all this in, similar to what's there. Not an area we use. Was thinking of concrete or putting the paths there. We won't. And I think having the pipes, that if I ever need to access them, hopefully I never need to access the bottom drains. But the returns, I may decide to do something and spur off a return, or do an air source heat pump or something like that. There's a perfect area for one over there. If I do ever decide to do that, the jury's still very much out on the heating side of things. So that's moving along. So hopefully when I do a video update next week, this should be hopefully finished. So we're getting nice sort of defined edging around. It's over there, it's metal edging that will define the stone area in the beds from the grass, and put a nice sort of firm edge right around the grass area, and that topsoil and hardcore I never used and all, and various pieces of junk. So hopefully this will start looking somewhat decent as we move into the autumn winter months. Other than that, Pergola, I did get a price back on that, and it was the kind of €3,000 that I guess it would be. Just to remind you, it's going to be a large wooden structure, overhanging the front a little bit, overhanging the back a little bit. It's going to tie onto the shed here, so we'll only need one post at the back here and 3 posts on the other side. So you know, it's kind of nearly 6 meters by 4 meters, and we're also going for a tiled roof. If I look at my neighbour's shed there, you'll see that kind of plastic artificial tile. You know, the builder was saying to me, listen, if you don't want a lot of sunlight, if you want shade on the pond, those tiles with a kind of a roof that shape are probably much the same price as doing a polycarbonate roof. So that's what we're going to do. So it will be open, there'll be plenty of light getting in for the fish, but there will be shelter from the rain, and there will be a gutter on either side. Now the gutters, we might be able to run a gutter down. There'll be sort of a V here as it ties in, and they'll put some sort of a gutter down into that shore, which will be fine. This end over this side would need a gutter as well, just to stop in heavy rain. But I think what I'll do is I'll just dig a bit of a hole. This is going to be a stone path here, and just do a bit of a soak away here. Just dig, you know, a foot down and fill it with gravel, so when the water does drain off it. To be honest, not really out in this area an awful lot. That's why I think stone paths just suffice. The odd bit of maintenance happening on it, but that's about it. But I don't think we're going to get the garden done first and then let the finances recover a little bit, and then probably in the September, October time frame, just before the cold weather really sets in, we'll get the pergola done. Around the same time as the pergola, and probably before it, I'll do the covers. And I'm going to do, I don't know if you've seen Steve Rainwright's covers, but he has sort of the polycarbonate suspended on a couple of treated posts, that the posts just rest on the edge here and the polycarbonate just hangs down, and I'll do those. Now whether I do it in just 2 pieces here or do it in 3 on the bottom, and I'll also do one for the top. Debatable whether I leave the waterfall running in the winter. I suppose I could box it into the cover and just keep it running. I don't know, might need to just do that, try it and see how the temperatures go with it, both on and off, because the water's going to be slightly warmer or less cold down the bottom, so taking the water from the bottom through the bottom drains and turning it over the top is not a great idea in the winter. Mightn't be too bad if I have it boxed in and there isn't that sort of wind chill on it, but we'll see. So I'll probably do that in the sort of late September time frame, and it'll be good to have those covers in situ when they're building the pergola. So if they drop anything, which they probably will drop anything, I won't have to fish it out of the bottom of the pond. It'll be time enough anyway, I'd say, coming into October to start putting covers back on, unfortunately. And now on to the back piece of the pond. As I said, I gave that a vac. You can still see some of that residue down there. I do have the net pushed away. I need to get, by the way, what I'm going to do is get a 6x4 metre net, which is just sort of a perfect size for this, and have it go the full length of the pond. I don't have fish in this bit, but the reason I put the net over was because I had pigeons sitting in the waterfall washing and cooling off, and various birds, and I'm just worried of bringing in flukes, and I had a dose of flukes there about 3 weeks ago I had to treat, so I put the net over. Unfortunately the birdies have to bath elsewhere, but just to prevent that, so I think I'll bring the net, get one net right over. But anyway, there was a lot of residue, so I said before that this does tend to be a settling tank. There's a couple of inlets you can see at the bottom there, one over the other side, so the water, or part of the water, gets pumped in here, rises up and overflows over the top. Not so much settlement in the bottom as you'd expect with two bottom drains. You do get a bit of residue in the middle every few weeks. I vac it out, not a big deal. I have an Oasi vac, Pondo Vac 4, so it's grand for the job. So the fact that a lot of the settlement in here happens here is quite good, because it's only 800 mil deep, so it does allow me fairly easily to vac it out. So what I'm going to do, and I'll talk you through that in a minute, I did have plans initially when I was designing the pond. My wife wanted this sort of area with a water feature, with a waterfall. She didn't like the idea of just one big sort of triangular tank, although I have to admit that's what I probably would have preferred, because it means more fish. But anyway, this is what we went for. Initially I did plan to potentially use this for anoxic, but I went away from the anoxic idea, not because I don't believe it works. I believe it does, and it's good science. But I'm a traditional fish keeper. I've kept fish in aquariums for 20 years, and I've used the nitrogen cycle, and I just decided to revert back to what I know rather than something that I don't know. The other thing that was necessary if I did have this for anoxic was that I'd have to have all the pond water running through here, which would have meant a power feed and a pump in this area, which I just felt was adding complexity and getting the balance between the water not being pumped in at the same rate to here and not being pumped out too quickly. Anyway, it got a bit too complicated, so I abandoned the idea. But what I want to do is put, and I mentioned before, a few baskets of media in here, and I'm going to talk to you through that in a minute as to what I planned. You know, I've 150 litres of plastic media in the combi filter, and a lot of people would say that with my size of pond and with the probable, you know, capacity of 15 or so koi, that I've more than enough filtration, that adding additional is probably just creating work for myself. But I do like the idea, if anything happens to the filter, that I do have some kind of backup. The thing is with alfagrog, when you have it in a backy shower, the water sort of trickles down through it, and you don't get a build up of dirt or residue in any great way. The difficulty is in here that the potential is that I do get a build up in it. Now there is a fair flow, I don't know if you can see at the top of this pond, but there is movement of the water, so there is a fair push through there. So I reckon if I put the baskets in around the back here, there should be a flow of water into them and back up, so that there shouldn't be too much of a build up of residue. As well as that, it's not a big deal to sort of stick the vac in here every couple of weeks, as I do anyway, just to give it a quick hoover out. But the thing you want to avoid, and you see it a lot in bay type filters, if they're not cleaned regularly, you get this gunky mud builds up and you get this sort of anaerobic bacteria starts, and you know you have it because there's an awful stink of it, and it generally tends to happen in alfagrog type media. Now we know with multi-bay filters they do have to be cleaned very regularly, and I think that's more likely to happen if you don't sort of take the media out and flush them out fairly regularly, but I need to avoid that kind of thing happening. So I'm going to give it a go and at least try it over the next couple of months and see how it works, and at the very best it will give me some backup and additional sort of filtration. You know, you can't over filter a pond, so you know I'm not worried about that, and it does put this to some sort of use. I will also be adding probably 2 or 3 baskets of lilies in here. I did have a local supplier said he'd arranged them for me and text me, but he didn't, and I didn't chase them, so it's maybe not something I'll do at this stage because it's not long now before it starts to get cooler, so I won't get much growth on them, so I may leave that till next May. The other thing I've been thinking about is the spillway for the waterfall. As you can see, that's fiberglass, and the original plan was that I would get a stainless steel spillway made. Now the local company who made the frame for my window, I got a galvanized steel frame made. I did get a quote from them, and I did ask them to go and make it, but they haven't come back. Now I know they're very busy and it's kind of holiday season as well, but I did get a quote of €280, which is about 250 or so pounds. Thought it was expensive, but I suppose it is stainless steel and it is a one-off piece of work. But I have been thinking and looking while I was doing a bit of research on polycarbonate multi-wall for the covers. I did see black acrylic, which works out for a sheet of it, a 1 metre sheet, which is a bit more than I need. I think it's 1 metre by 2 metres, so it's probably a lot more than I need, but it's the smallest piece. It works out at about €100, including tax, to get a piece that would be cut to size. So I want the width of that, which is about 88 centimetres, 880 mil, to jut out a bit, which I think is about 35 centimetres, which takes the flow of water away from the wall. You can see with the wall there, although it looks all right and it works, you do get a lot of build-up of calcification and algae there, and I did have a lot of blanket weeds starting to form there when I had the blanket weed, so it's not great. So I want to bring that flow out, that I get the spill away from the wall. The other thing that you need on a spillway, you might, if you sort of recollect what they look for, the edges are turned up so as it guides the water to the end of the spillway, and you get this nice even flow over the edge. What I did see was you can get these 90-degree plastic pieces. I think they're used for sort of cornering off furniture or walls, protecting walls. But if I got the black piece of acrylic cut and then use Tech 7 just to stick on this 90-degree angle so it creates the edge, and I could maybe pare it down at the ends. You know, that for a lot less than €280 could give me what I'm looking for. I'm just going to Tech 7 it in place. That's all I was going to do. That's fiberglass there. So just basically rest the piece of acrylic, you know, obviously probably clear this out at least to welly level that I can wade in and get in at it, and Tech 7 and seal in the piece of acrylic and make sure it's nice and level. Well, first of all, is maybe put my angle pieces on the side to guide the water, and then I could Tech 7 those pieces of plastic on, and maybe I'll put a link to them so you know what I'm talking about down in the comments, and then just Tech 7 the piece of acrylic in place and just go well around this side of it, particularly to make sure the water just goes over it, it doesn't go under or around it. And I think that would do my job for less than half the price, so I think I'm going to give that a go over the next few weeks. Maybe do it when I'm ordering the multi-wall polycarbonate. The good thing with the multi-wall polycarbonate as well, although it kind of works out at near €100 the sheet I need, and I need 4 of them. Excuse me, they do come cut to size, so I can just cut the size, and all I need to do then is get the treated timber joists or whatever you call them. Put, you know, just screw 2 of them to each sheet and suspend it over, and that should do the job. So onto my alfagrog for the back. I was thinking of doing it in plant baskets, but I was in the local hardware store and I saw these, and they are that bit stronger and they probably would be easier to lift out. And I think what I need to do, probably as well, there's no holes in the bottom, is just drill maybe 6 holes, nothing too big in the bottom. I don't want the alfagrog coming through, and I was thinking of just doing 4 of them. And then instead of maybe just lobbing in all the alfagrog together, is maybe using one of these. These are something a friend gave me. These are these yolks that, I don't know if you ever saw them, but you can float them on top of a pond instead of a net to keep the heron away. Don't like them really. He didn't like them either, that's why he's giving them to me. I was going to make some sort of a strainer for my skimmer because there's nothing in it, or maybe to cut these to size and just maybe put in a layer, put in one of these, so just to keep it a bit of a gap, so there is more of an opportunity for the water to flow through, so I don't get that stagnant water and the potential for the in fact I might drill a few holes in the side as well, see how big my alfagrog is. They're fairly big pieces, all right. So just make sure I get a flow of water through and the alfagrog isn't too closely packed, and I'll give that a go. So I'm going to mount the you probably don't want to see me do the whole lot of this. I'm going to drill holes. I might show you me drilling 1 hole with the hole saw. It's a bit boring watching the whole lot. The alfagrog, I think I mentioned before, I couldn't find a source for it in Ireland anywhere, and I ended up ordering it on eBay. It wasn't a bad price. It worked out at about £15 sterling for the bag, but it was another £10 to ship it. So it's probably the most expensive. It's a 15 kilo bag, the most expensive bag of alfagrog, but you know, it was the only way to get it, unfortunately. But I do have it. I will give it a wash out as well. I know it does say wash before use. If any of you have fish tanks and you've put in sand or gravel and not washed it, you'll know the effect. They're not in that size of a pond, that'll probably flush it out fairly quickly. But anyway, I will probably put it in the baskets and then wash it out with the hose. I don't need to worry about using chlorinated water because it's not live media, obviously. So I'm going to stick it on the tripod and give that a go. Be back to you now in a sec. Right, before we start, I just opened up the alfagrog. They are quite large bits. I'm not too sure if you can see there what it is, but it is kind of a lava rock alfagrog. It is kind of lava type, very porous, so it's very good for housing bacteria, and it's used a fair bit in aquariums and ponds as well, and it's quite, as I say, cheap. You know, you're talking about £15 or €20 or so for that bag, so certainly compared to the likes of plastic media, it is a lot cheaper. So going back to the baskets, as I said, I'm going to drill maybe 4 holes. I have quite a small bit there. I don't want it too big, though that's about the size of the pieces of alfagrog. I don't want them falling through it, obviously. The holes in the bottom probably aren't going to do much. It will just mean as I'm lifting the baskets out at any stage to clean, that the water will drain out fairly quickly, so they won't be too heavy. So I'll just give this one a try. I did stick in a wood bit. It's a bit sharper and probably better for this job, but just let's see how we do here. Yeah, that's fairly quick. Might just try and get these stickers off. They're not these things ever. Always stuck on, but I'll get it in a second. Ah, shit. Well, there you go. That's that one out of the equation anyway. Right, that happened because I didn't clean this out and the blade was so anyway, I'm down to 3 baskets. I can always pick up another one, they're not that expensive. But I think the lesson is there that I need to clean this out, which is a pain. I have a screwdriver here. So I'll tell you what, I will fix this, drill the rest of them out, hopefully without any more breakages, and I'll come back to you when that's done. Right, we're back. That was actually handy enough. So I drilled holes not only in the bottom but in the sides just to make the flow a bit better as well. The mistake, by the way, I made with this one was the little round piece that the drill bit takes out. Most of the time it falls through the hole, but you have to be careful it doesn't sit there and impede the teeth, and that's what it did. It wasn't going through. I pressed too hard and I broke it, but anyway, €11. I'll pick another one up during the week if I need it. There was plenty of them there. So that's that done, and I've cleaned up all the residue. The sticker, by the way, on the bottom is one of those ones from hell that won't come off. The one that was on the side came off very easy enough. So now what I'll do is I'll just start putting in a bit of alfagrog. I'm not sure if I'll need this. Let's just go ahead and see where we get initially. So just put some of this in. It is dusty, by the way, so it definitely needs a wash. It should allow enough water movement through it. You can see I probably don't have enough of this. What I could do then is just put one of these, this is all tied together, and one of these would be ideal. It's put together with cable ties. Just give me a sec. That's not quite. Have that bit off, so that's really, I just cut across here. I don't know what price these things were, but as I say, they did. I remember seeing them before, but they're quite expensive. You buy them in sheets and squares like tiles, and they join together and they float in the top of the ponds as a deterrent to herons. I don't think they look great, to be honest. I never went for them, and if I recall as well, they weren't cheap, you know, and certainly the size of my pond. So maybe I'll put that in there and just use that as a divider to create some air, and put in another just to make sure the water can actually get through it. I think I've about enough for 2 baskets, to be honest. I was being a little bit optimistic. I think I'll just go with that. That's not too heavy. I know when the media soaks up the water, it's going to be a lot heavier. But anyway, let's see where we go. So we go with the second one. So what I'll do is I'll cut here, I'll fill up the other two, and then we'll move up and we'll drop them in to the pond. Okay, cheers. Right, actually the fourth one didn't come into play really because I've only enough alfagrog for 3 baskets, so that worked out okay. As I say, I do have in each of them the divider, so I don't have, there is a spare bit of movement in between it anyway, but just to give the water a chance to move through it a bit better, whether it's needed or not is debatable. I had it there, so I put it in. So what I'm going to do now is give them a bit of a rinse through with just normal water. As I say, I can use the tap because it's not live filter media yet. You know, again, if I had to rinse them while they were matured, I'd have to use pond water. But at the minute, it's fine to use the tap. So here we go. It is very dusty, by the way. Whether this achieves an awful lot is another thing. It's not a hugely great flow from here, but it should be better than nothing. As I say, I'm not overly concerned about a bit of dust. It'll probably just settle in the back bit anyway, and I can back it out. But just to get the rough off it, because you can see from the table there, it is dusty and there is a bit of grit in it. So I will do this to the other two. It's not over drying, but I'm not worried it's going to just run into the ground there anyway. I'll do this to the other two, and then you'll join me up the back of the pond and we'll drop them in. Cheers. Right, we're at the back of the pond. I have the 3 baskets here that I kind of rinsed out. As I say, they're probably not great, but they're better than they were. I'm going to use these kind of bungee straps. Mightn't work too well when I get them out, just to lower it in and get it into some sort of position. I wasn't going to put them right in front of the outlet because I think the water flow would be too much, and I don't want to impede the outlet either. So I think just to put them opposite, maybe put one. As I say, the water tends to go across and then rise. Not a lot of dust coming out of that, so I might just drop that one there. Comes off. That's the problem. I think I'm going to have to just bite the bullet and put my hand in there, take the gloves off. Yeah, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. I'll take them off up here and just drop it down and push them into place. That was worth a try, because I'm not going to get them off too easily when they float. So that's going to go in there. Good enough there. I'll just push it in nearer to the wall with the thing. So that's probably one nicely in place. As I say, they probably are a little bit unsightly, but not that I'm going to be standing here looking into the back, and I think that's part of the reason to have the lilies, just to make this, give this kind of a purpose as well. So I'll just go over with the other one. I don't know if you can see the other side. We'll go over that anyway. Fine. Over on the other side, and then maybe I'll try. There's actually not that much dust rising from there. It'll just be interesting to see how they do longer term. I'll maybe just put one alongside this one, or I can push it into the middle. It doesn't, I mean, it's more for aesthetics, pushing it into the middle. Maybe just keeping it near here and the over slightly, just see that large. They do manoeuvre fairly easily. There. So that's 2 there. As I say, I have no more alfagrog anyway, so I don't have room for 2. On the other side, it's about the second distance, is it? Yeah. So basically, you probably can't see that one. So I have to trade them in. So I think it's just a matter of keeping an eye on it over the net. I mean, you know, that is a fair amount of alfagrog, 15 kilos. You know, if you were putting that into a vacuum shower, it is a fair amount. There's a fair amount of filtration from that. As I say, it's just to have something along with the plastic media. You know, if something happens to the filter, that as long as the pump is running, I would have some type of biological filtration. I'm not as worried about mechanical filtration, obviously. So we'll just see how it goes. I mean, it's the anaerobic bacteria problem, where you get that sludge build up and the stink, and it creates nitrates and all sorts of other things. That's what I want to avoid. So if I start to get that, I may need to abandon it. But hopefully, maybe by, you know, not clumping it all together in a bag as some people do, and giving a little bit of freedom through the media, and there's a fair amount of flow of water down there, that I should be able to keep it good. And also, you know, I can stick the vac in there very easily. It's not deep, it's not as though, you know, I think it's manageable. But as I say, we'll report back over the next few weeks and see how it goes. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed me rambling and breaking things and generally trying stuff out. As I say, I just want a purpose for the back of this. I'm not sure I'll put lilies in at this late stage. I'm going up to Belfast next week to Clearly Aquatics. Now if they have some nice lilies, I might be tempted to stick them in. I'll probably get a little bit of growth. I've been told that the 800 mil is fine for lilies, so I could drop large baskets in there and they're fine. Probably not great for other types of pond plants, but all I really want is lilies. I'm not going to do a bog filter or anything like that. And it will help maybe cover up these as well, although not that I'm be looking in here that often. So if you have any comments on the alfagrog and how that's going to work out, be glad to hear them. Let me know. Any comments on my spillway idea, or the winter covers, let me know on that as well. And hit like if you want to see more. If you have any suggestions for other videos you want to see around the pond or the filter, just let me know. Thanks. Cheers.